So there's that common saying, do as I say, not as I do. So this actually comes from a commenter that asked what my wife and I plan on doing with our own kids when it comes to teaching them how to use money effectively. And so one of the things that became kind of the forefront of my mind when I was thinking about this question is that I want one guiding principle for both of us when it comes to teaching our kids with money. And that guiding principle is to live by example. Our kids, all kids, I should say, live by what they see. They're going to see your example and what you do first before they ever really hear what you're saying. So there's that common saying, do as I say, not as I do. Well, unfortunately, if you're trying to teach your children good habits, you need to do the exact opposite. You need to start living out the attributes you want your kids to adopt. And if you don't start doing it yourself, it's not going to happen with them. They need to see it first. It needs to become part of what is considered normal to them. Right? Every family has a family culture, and that is what is considered normal to your kids until they start interacting with other people and learning about other ways of doing things. So you need to build a culture that shows that money is thought about in this way. We use money for these ways, and this is how we handle it. And that will then become what is considered normal to them. So that's the first and foremost thing, is that we want to live by example, by doing the right things with money, voicing out loud what we're thinking. I do this as a teacher all the time. I don't leave my thoughts in my head. I'm constantly talking out loud to my kids in the classroom because I want them to understand that these are the thoughts that are going through my head to tackle the problem that we're currently dealing with. Often I do this with math. I will say, all right, I'm thinking about this. I need to do 5 times 4, which I know equals 20. And, as I'm thinking all this out loud, I'm not just writing it on the board and hoping that they're getting it. And so it's the same thing with our kids. When we're buying things, when we're budgeting, we're going to think out loud. We're going to tell them why we're doing what we're doing, and then they can pick up on it. So when it comes to them right now, right, they're just little kids right now. They're not going to grasp a monthly budget or anything like that. But as they grow, we want our instruction to grow with them. And so some of the early things that we're going to do is just associate work with money. So eventually when Caspian's old enough to start handling some chores, there's going to be money associated with that. You do work and you get something for it, because we want to build that work ethic. And then eventually when they get old enough to get an actual job where they'll get an actual paycheck, they will have already had that built in, that yes, I have to put in work if I want to get a paycheck. That's how life works. The other thing we want to do is when they earn that money, we want to show them that things cost money. So when they're getting those little bits of allowance from doing their chores, they'll have an opportunity to go and spend it on something. And then they'll see the transaction happen. They'll feel the transaction too, because they'll know, I worked to get this money, and now I'm seeing the money leave, and I'm getting this item for it. So things cost money, and I need to be careful with what I'm spending it on, because I only have a certain amount of money unless I want to go back to work and get more. So all of that we're hoping to kind of be able to teach when they're really young through practice, by having them just do it. And then it'll implicitly be internalized that yes, work is how you get money, and in order to get stuff, you must give up your money to get it. So that's their younger years. They're not quite there yet. They're still very young. Caspian's 3, he's getting close to 4, and then Ellery is 1, but she's getting closer to 2. They are not at the age yet to quite associate that. But I'm hoping that in the next couple years or so, Caspian can then be brought into that. He already likes doing chores right now. They'll just be adding money to the chores. And then Ellery, of course, we'll try to get her on board when she gets a little older too. But looking beyond where they're at right now, when they become teenagers and they get older, we're going to want them to get a first job. We're going to be talking about buying a car. We're going to talk about the costs that are associated with that. When my wife and I start budgeting monthly, we're going to probably want to, well, actually, we're already budgeting monthly, but when we do it during that time, we're going to want to bring our kids into it. We're going to want them to see the real numbers. We're going to want them to be able to know that, oh yeah, there's an electricity bill. And for my parents, it's been costing them this much. And this is how much they are netting at the end of the month. And all these different things that are going with it. So to kind of build that into them. Because when I was a kid, I didn't really see any of that. Yes, I did chores. I earned money. I saved up money for things that I wanted. I did all of that stuff. But as far as my own parents' finances, the most I would hear is, oh, well, money's kind of tight this month, so we kind of need to dial it back a little bit. And in my young mind, I don't know what that means. I don't know any context about that. Are we a month away from getting booted out of our house? Like, what are we talking about here? I had no context to go with that. So I kind of want to not do that with our kids. I want them to be able to be aware of what we're spending things on so that they're more prepared when they need to go out and do the same for themselves. And then I even think about when my wife and I, when we first got married, I kind of took that stuff with me into marriage. I would tell Laura, well, we kind of need to dial it back a little bit with our spending this month. And for her, it was the same kind of thinking that I had when I was a kid. Oh, I guess we have only $3 in the bank account. We need to buckle down and all this stuff. And really all I was saying is we need to try to, pull back on $50, $100 this month. You cut out a couple things and we should be good. And that's really all I was saying. But because of the way I was conveying it, it sounded like we have barely any money in the bank account and we need to go DEFCON 1 right now, buckle down. So I don't want that. I don't want to carry that into teaching my kids how to handle money. I want to be more open and more honest with them about it. Because I feel, and this is just family dynamics in general. When you're teaching your kids about anything that becomes hush-hush, anything that becomes something you can't talk about, then they either have no knowledge in that area, that topic, or they're finding their information from a different source. You're their parent. You know them best. And you should be the first voice on that topic, whatever topic it is. In this case, we're talking about money, but it's beyond that. It's other things too. You should be the first voice that they hear about that topic. But if you make it this taboo thing, well, then they're going to go somewhere else. And that somewhere else may not be a good source. So if you have kids, and I'm not saying that I'm perfect in this at all. I'm just going based off of my own personal experience here. But if you have kids, you should be that source. And you shouldn't say, there's nothing off the table. Anything you want to bring to me, I will talk about it with you. And we will work through it together. I'm going to be an open book for you so that you have a source to come to and get some information. You may not be I'm not the most knowledgeable source in anything, but there's an answer to that too. If you don't really know the question that your kid is asking you, it's okay, I'm going to do a little bit of research, you do a little bit of research, and let's talk about this again in a week or 2 weeks or whatever. And then we can have another discussion about it. That way, you have an opportunity to educate yourself on the topic a little bit and sort of control where the source is going to be, where the source of information is going to come from. If you're a Christian, the source should probably first start with the Bible, right? That should be the first start. And then after that, maybe some Christian people that you look up to that may have more knowledge about the topic than you do. and can point you in the right direction for certain things. And then after that, maybe you can start to look at other sources if those first two don't have anything to say about that particular topic. So yeah, that's, as you can see, the overall idea when it comes to teaching our kids about money is going to be less about textbooks. Yes, I'm a teacher and we do textbooks all the time, but it's going to be less about that. It's going to be more about practice, putting it into practice. Because you can have it all up here. You can have all the head knowledge. You can know that mathematically this is the right choice. But a lot of things when it comes to money is behavior. And you have to teach behavior through practice, not through theory, but through doing. That's how you get better. You have to build a habit, right? It takes 30 days to build a habit, repeatedly doing it over and over again. And a lot of times when you're doing that, you're breaking an old habit in order to create the new one. So you're fighting an old habit while creating a new one at the same time. And it all has to do with practice.